We are now going to enter in Napoleon Hill's early business transactions. While he did try to put his ideas into motion, they were not always successful. Again, we always tell the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to history. We do not cover up anything. We do encourage patience because this is only one facet of a very complex person. Come walk with us as we go through some of Hill's most notorious business deals. All aboard the Kentucky Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up that time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine for our flight back in time, but it convinces the YouTube algorithm that we need a bigger vehicle to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. Acree-Hill Lumber Company. For all the Tesla fans out there, please don't groan at this quote. Thomas A. Edison is often quoted as saying, quote, I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work, unquote. So was the motto of Oliver Napoleon Hill. We will walk through his failures as a businessman and teacher and his struggles with the law in this section of his story. In 1907, Oliver moved to Mobile, Alabama, and co-founded the Acree-Hill Lumber Company. In 1908, the company faced bankruptcy and charges of mail fraud for purchasing lumber outside of Mobile. Hill would purchase the lumber from other counties in Alabama and Florida to sell it below cost, thereby failing to generate a profit. We have a copy of the newspaper report concerning the charges leveled at Napoleon Hill. This comes from the Pensacola Journal, dated October 17, 1908. Quote, President of Lumber Company is missing. O. N. Hill of Acree-Hill Lumber Company is gone from Mobile. It is claimed that indebtedness of Mill will aggregate at least $10,000. He has not been seen in Mobile in several weeks. Special to the Journal. Mobile, October 16th. The whereabouts of O. N. Hill, said to be the president and general manager of the Acree-Hill Lumber Company, is causing considerable anxiety among creditors of the concern in the state and several other southern lumber sections. Hill has not been seen in his office since September 8th. It was reported today that criminal and bankruptcy proceedings are to be filed against Mr. Hill unless he appears very soon and straightens out some affairs concerning his business operations. Several firms of local attorneys have claims against the company, and it is stated that through one firm charges of using the mails to defraud have been made before the federal authorities. United States Commissioner Richard Jones, when asked as to the accuracy of the report concerning the fraudulent charge and whether warrants had been issued for Hill, replied that he had nothing to say upon the subject. The Acree-Hill Lumber Company maintained offices in room number 209 of the City Bank and Trust Company building. Persons occupying an adjoining office could not say as to Hill's whereabouts, but did say that he had not been seen around the office for a week or more. The desks in the office were clean, as if not having been in use for some time. Warrants are out. It is known that the warrants charging Hill with the fraudulent use of the mails has been issued, and warrants are also said to have been issued at the instance of alleged victims of the firm in Montgomery. From what could be ascertained, the Acree-Hill Lumber Company did not buy to any extent in what is known as the Mobile Lumber District, but on the contrary, bought heavily in other districts in the state and in Georgia and Florida. Among Hill's alleged transactions was said to be the purchase of 17 carloads of lumber from a Georgia firm at a cost of $16 per thousand feet, and this It was said, "The firm, if there are any other members, sold at as much lower price, and so far as known at the time, have been made no returns." There are many reports concerning the method of the Acree-Hill Lumber Company current today, and there is much activity in some circles. From the name Acree, it may be assumed that J.O. Acree, well known in local lumber circles, was connected with the concern, but this was not the case. While Mr. Acree could not be located, it was stated that he was not a member of the firm and that his name was used by the concern following the sale of his business. Bankruptcy proceedings against the lumber company will, it is said, be filed in the United States District Court this afternoon or tomorrow. They are being prepared by local attorneys representing creditors of the company. While the extent of the indebtedness of Hill is not given out by those concerned, it was learned that it will be arranged from $10,000 to $20,000. And there is nothing in the way of assets so far as could be ascertained. Owen Hill will be readily recalled as the young man who came into prominence in the city in May last following his arrest by the local authorities on a warrant issued by a member of the firm with which he was then identified charging the alteration of a check. Unquote. Let's just say we couldn't find anyone saying anything about Hill altering checks other than this article. And that's not good. But we shall continue forward. Automobile College of Washington. May 1909. While going through his divorce proceedings with his wife Edith, Oliver moved to Washington, D.C. to start an Automobile College of Washington. It was at this point that Hill dropped his first name, Oliver, and began going by the name Napoleon Hill. The college was set up to help students to build, chauffeur, and sell motor cars for the Carter Motor Corporation. There were accusations of the college being a scam that came from the Motor World Automobile magazine. The magazine also accused Hill's advertising as being, quote, a joke to anyone of average intelligence, unquote. Because of this, Hill changed the curriculum for his college from learning how to make cars to teaching students how to sell cars. But in truth, Hill had set up a multi-level marketing company, or MLM. This is how it worked. The students were encouraged to sell courses from the Automobile College of Washington. They got no compensation for selling these courses. The goal was to bring in more students and not so much about learning to sell cars. However, none of the students received compensation for the labor from making cars or selling classes in the college. Carter Motor Corporation declared bankruptcy in 1912. LaSalle Extension University, Betsy Ross Candy Shop, Illinois Central Railroad, and George Washington Institute of Advertising. Shortly after the bankruptcy, Hill moved his new bride, Florence Elizabeth Horner, to Chicago, Illinois. There, Hill had accepted a new position with LaSalle Extension University. Not long after, Hill helped to co-found the Betsy Ross Candy Shop. Within a year, Hill was forced out of the candy shop partnership and left LaSalle Extension University. In 1915, Hill established the George Washington Institute of Advertising in Washington, D.C., where he intended to teach principles of success and self-confidence. In 1917, Oliver Hill threatened to bring a lawsuit against the Illinois Central Railroad because of low lighting in their passenger cars. Hill claimed because of this, he now needed to wear glasses. It was also between 1917 and 1918 that Florence had taken their children and moved in with her parents in West Virginia. According to the Chicago Daily Tribune, on June 4, 1918, Hill acquired 2 arrest warrants for violation of the Blue Sky Laws. These laws protect the public from fraudulent sales of securities. We will now read together what the Chicago Daily Tribune has to say about Napoleon Hill. Quote, Carnegie of educational world, unquote, accused of, quote, blue sky, unquote, stuff. Napoleon Hill last night faced his Waterloo and discreetly retreated. 2 warrants were issued charging him with violations of Illinois blue sky law. He learned of them, is said to have concealed himself in the downtown district, and late in the evening telephoned he would surrender himself at the Detective Bureau this morning. Who is Napoleon Hill? Quote, he is to the educational world what Andrew Carnegie is to the steel business, what Vanderbilt is to the banking business, and what Rockefeller is to the oil business, unquote. At least that is what he says about himself in a prospectus he issued in the name of the George Washington Institute, 80 East Randolph Street, which is a combined school of advertising and a stock selling plan. Also, according to lesson number 3, sent out to his students, he is a candidate for Congress. He suggested, nay, directed, that his students write letters to each of the Chicago newspapers urging his candidacy. The open hearted man. Quote, I'm going to represent you in Congress, unquote. Read the 3rd lesson. Quote, not because I need a congressional seat. I could make more money at advertising and teaching, but because I love you and all humanity, and I want to do something that will benefit humanity long after I have passed on, unquote. He is further described in his booklet, From Poverty to $10,000 a Year, as, quote, Napoleon Hill, author, advertising counselor, and writing of forceful human interest letters and advertising copy, unquote. But to get down to a statement of his personal activities, there is in the hands of Raymond S. Pruitt, Assistant Attorney General in the charge of Blue Sky Matters, a complete report on Napoleon. Quote, on September 15th, 1915, quote, reads the report. Quote, Napoleon Hill took over Bryant and Stratton School of Advertising, 80 East Randolph Street, then under his supervision. He named it the George Washington Institute, and with 2 of his employees as directors besides himself, incorporated the school under the laws of Delaware, August 13, 1917. With a capital of $100,000 divided into 10,000 shares per value $10 each. After appropriating 51% of the stock to himself to secure control, he engaged in a campaign to sell the majority of the remaining shares to investors, principally students, with the avowed purpose of operating a resident and correspondence school of advertising. Investigation reveals that the physical properties and other assets of the Institute appear insufficient to warrant the $100,000 capitalization placed upon it. The school, quote, the school consists of offices, reception room, and 1 classroom on the 2nd floor at 80 East Randolph Street, equipped with 39 school desks, which are said to be property of Bryant and Stratton School. The entire equipment owned by the Institute, including office furniture, a mimeograph, printed supplies, etc., are liberally appraised at $1,200. Despite the negligible character of the school's assets and the already high capitalization, steps are now afoot to increase the capitalization to $500,000, of which is understood Hill is to receive a sufficient share to maintain control. Unquote. The First National. Prospective students have been receiving letters from the First National Trust Association, 64 West Randolph Street, offering to lend them $110 for tuition in the Institute, to be repaid in installments at 5% interest. Napoleon, that is Napoleon Hill, persuaded James B. McAuliffe, who came from Buffalo, Minnesota, to invest in the stock of the Institute. Mr. McAuliffe is a guardian for a minor brother and sister, Robert and Lucille. He believed that it was a good investment for them. Turned over a $1,000 Liberty bond and $670 in cash, and was made secretary of the Institute. He worked there 2 months and then quit. Efforts to get his money back were unsuccessful. Unquote. Hill was accused of trying to sell shares of stock of the George Washington Institute of Advertising for $100,000 capitalization, when the school itself, with its assets, was only valued at $1,200. The school closed due to allegations of fraud brought by the students of the George Washington Institute of Advertising and the fact that the school was uncredited. Hill's Golden Rule and Napoleon Hill's magazine. Shortly after the close of the school, Hill began the publication of two magazines called Hill's Golden Rule and Napoleon Hill's Magazine. In 1919, the Federal Trade Commission brought charges of fraudulent advertising and laundering of funds against Napoleon Hill and his publication, Hill's Golden Rule. The funds in question were supposed to go to a veterans charity, but instead, Hill had placed the funds into a fraudulent oil stock scheme. Napoleon would lose control over Hill's Golden Rule magazine to a group of disgruntled employees. Hill attempted to gain revenge against one of the employees by turning him in for suspected spy activities to the FBI. Intra-Wall Correspondence School. In 1922, Hill opened up the Intra-Wall Correspondence School and a charitable foundation that provided educational materials to prisoners in Ohio. The school primarily ended up selling copies of Hill's Golden Rule and correspondence courses. Butler Stork ran the foundation, but was later found to be a check forger and former convict. He was sent back to prison just a year later in 1923. During that same year, a local newspaper had printed that the school was a scam. Donald Millett was a local newspaper editor who was murdered for his confrontation of a local organized crime. Napoleon Hill also claimed that he had also received the same death threats from the same people. In next week's video, we will cover the fantastic claims of Napoleon Hill and what happened to the records of the meetings with them. Thank you. Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the outstanding Appalachian people. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification. Please double check that you are subscribed, as some of our viewers are finding that they are no longer subscribed to our channel. We thank you so much for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.